The issue for humanity is identity. It's identity, and it's not a matter, there need not be any reconciliation, you know, that if you wake up to your true nature, what it provides for you is an experience of being human that's enjoyable, that is fulfilling, that's peaceful, that's satisfying. It provides a condition of happiness, okay? Now, as far as the operation in the world, yeah, the brain and the mind and the conditioning are survival oriented. It's a survival program, okay? The problem with it is that if you don't know who you are, you're surviving all the time against threats, all the time. So you're living in fear all the time. You're concerned all the time. Because the threats, if you don't know what you are, the threats aren't just aren't about threatening your physical body. No, much more than that. The threats occur to you as a personality, that you as a personality are being threatened because you believe that you as a personality are real and actually exist and therefore can be threatened. So the Course in Miracles says what is real cannot be threatened. Well, if that's true, right, then you must not be real if you feel threatened, right? What is real cannot be threatened. So being in the world requires time, space, and activities that are consistent with the nature of the world. So the body, in order to be the vehicle with which we experience being in the world, needs to survive. So no problem with the programming for survival when it comes to survival of the body, right? The problem is that if you don't know who you are, that survival programming extends itself, right? Where you now feel threatened by anybody that looks at you the wrong way. You now feel threatened by your own thoughts. You now feel threatened by anything that reflects back to you a negative reaction to your personality, your self-image, right? If anybody says something that has you appear to be invalid, you feel like you're dying. You have to fight or run. So you have all this energy that's being wasted now protecting something that doesn't exist. That's called neurosis. So it's not a matter of reconciliation. There need not be any reconciliation, because if you wake up and you see things as they are, yeah, then the programming that's necessary and the thinking that's necessary to survive the physical body, no problem, you know? You're not only no problem, but because you're awake now and you can see the difference between that and trying to survive as a self-image or a personality, that you stop responding to the programming that's telling you that your personality is being threatened, because you know that's not real. And you can't know that's not real unless you're awake. If you're not awake, you're totally identified with that and you think it is real, and you're living the life of that personality. And the life of that personality is not a pretty picture. The life of that personality is a fixated life. It's an obsessive life. It is an erotic life. It's a life where the personality is constantly involved in a process of seeking pleasure and gratification and avoiding pain and avoiding threat. So that's what's running the show day and night, right? That's why people need to learn to relax. They need to de-stress, because that's a stressful reality. You know, to live like that is a stressful reality. You know, if you look at the question, what do I want? Look at the question. Ask yourself the question. Honestly, sincerely, ask yourself the question. You do want things, you know, that's for sure, okay? What is it that you want? Really? More than anything else, what is it that you want? If you had that, you'd be satisfied. What is it?
Be happy.
To be happy, okay. Anybody else?
Content.
Content?
Peace and freedom.
Peace and freedom? Anything else? Anybody else?
Satisfaction.
Satisfaction, right? So isn't it interesting that when you look and ask yourself, what do I want? You start speaking the attributes of your true nature. That's interesting. You know, why is that, right? Well, the reason the reason it's that way is because one thing that you do know is that you don't have those things as a personality. Something's missing. That's the motivation of human behavior, isn't it? Something's missing. I want to get what I don't have. I want to find what's missing in the world somehow. I want to get peace. I want to get satisfaction. I want to get contentment. I want to be happy. That's true across the board for all of humanity. You could ask that question to any group of people and you'll get the same answers. Interesting. Get the same answers. That means that everybody's aware of what's not there. Everybody's aware of what's missing. Not only is everybody aware of what's missing, but everybody, and this is the best part, but everybody has an intuitive sense of there being a possibility to have the experience of that which is missing. Everybody has an intuitive sense. Yeah. Why would you have an intuitive sense about that which is missing? That there's a possibility of having the experience of that which is missing. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and discover that what was missing isn't missing. Be still and discover that what was missing was only seeming to be missing from the view you have as a character that doesn't actually exist. From the view you have of the conditioning that says you are this body, you are this personality, you are separate from everybody else, you're separate from the world, right? That's the original sin. That's the original sin, right? What is the original sin? The word sin, by the way, the root word of the word sin comes from archery. It means you missed the target. That's what the word sin means. It's not a moral reality. You just missed the target. You're not bad. You know, you don't need to be forgiven. You didn't do anything. You just missed the target, right? That's the original sin. What was the original sin? In the story of Adam and Eve, what happens? What's the sin? What's the sin? But what's the sin? Yeah, and what's the apple symbolize? Knowledge. The original sin is knowledge. Isn't that interesting? And what's the knowledge? What did you learn? What did you come to know when you were born in this tribe and you were taught? What did you come to learn? What was the knowledge that you took on? Yeah, right. The knowledge that you took on is you're a separate self. You're a physical body. Okay, that's the original sin. That's the original sin. So the sin, and again, that is a mistake, a misunderstanding, missing the target. Yeah. So you're born into the world, and you take on knowledge, which is considered missing the target. When you took on knowledge, you missed the target, okay? Well, it's inevitable that occurs in order for you to be able to function in the world, right? Yeah. So does that mean that you did something wrong? No. Do you need to be forgiven for being a personality? No. But what's the word forgive mean? It means to give back, doesn't it? To give back. So forgiving is not, see, the truth is, this is what Richard Rohr is trying to get the Christians to straighten out about. The truth is, nobody's morally wrong. Nobody needs to be forgiven, right? Forgive means to give back what? Your original nature. That's all. So, you took on knowledge. You needed to do that to be in the time-space reality that we're sharing here, okay? But that's a hell realm until you wake up. That's a hell realm until you are forgiven, which means that you take back your original nature. Now, once you take back your original nature, it's not a hell realm anymore. Once you take back your original nature, right? Now you have a way of being in the world that's beyond the survival. It's beyond survival. You don't need to survive. You understand, when you're awake, you understand that the body needs to be cared for, just like your car, right? Right? But you're not that body. It's something that you need to be cared. And you see, when you're awake, the truth is obvious. What's the truth? There is no self in this body. This is important to look. You're not going to get out of the conceptual reality that you're stuck in unless you do some inquiry. You inquire about this. Inquire about, am I this physical body? Inquire. Can you find a self in this body somewhere? Is there a self somewhere in this body? the evidence says no, because you could take this body, you could dissect this body, you could look all through this body, you could open up the skull and look around, all you'll see is flesh, blood, all that stuff. There's no self there. There's no self there. So if there's no self that's in this body, what's happened is you've learned to identify the idea that there's a self in this body because there is a looking through the eyes and a hearing through the ears, right? So then you think, oh, I must be located in the body, right? Well, but see, if you're going to do an inquiry, which means you're going to look closely at this to see, if it's actually the truth, right? Okay, good. If there's a self in your body, and that self is looking through your eyes, right? If you pay attention to the looking through your eyes, if you pay attention to the seeing that's happening right now, right? Is there any evidence that there is a personality seeing? There's seeing happening, yes? There's hearing happening, yes? Right? Do you have to do anything to hear? Do you have to do anything to see? See, do you have to do anything? Is a personality doing something to cause seeing? Is the personality doing something to cause hearing? No, the way that's occurring is it's just happening, yeah? So if seeing is just happening and listening is just happening or hearing is just happening, but there's no evidence of a person doing the seeing or the hearing, right? Okay, so the inquiry says the evidence indicates that there is no evidence of a person seeing or hearing, right? So now look at seeing and ask yourself, what is seeing? What is seeing? What is actually seeing? What is actually hearing? What is actually knowing? What is being known? What is knowing it, right? See, we have taken on the idea that the personality is, I am hearing, I am seeing, right? I am knowing, right? So what we've done is we've created a conceptual model of who we are and identified ourselves as that model, and then that's the end of that subject, and we just go from there, and we live our life from there. It turns out not to work very well, right? Because this model that we have created and we have identified ourselves with involves a constant process of thinking, right? That's based on the conditioning, right? And this thinking is constantly changing. The circumstances are constantly changing. This model, this personality is constantly changing, isn't it? Are you the same person you were 5 years ago? Are you the same person you were when you were 5 years old? No, you aren't.
Our awareness has never changed.
Yeah, but I didn't ask you about your awareness. I asked you about your person. Yeah. See, you're confused about that. Most people are. Most people are. No problem with being confused about that, right? But when you want to argue for something that doesn't exist, that's foolish. When you want to argue for something that doesn't exist and argue that it's real and it does exist and that's what you are and it's causing you a lot of suffering, that's foolish. Why not consider the possibility? Why not allow yourself to consider the possibility that what's seeing is not the personality, what's seeing is a miraculous awareness that is non-conceptual, that you don't know what that is, and yet it's you. This is the miracle of being human, right? So if you get the truth, if you wake up and come to see the reality that you are not what you learned you were, you were not, you can forgive yourself for eating the forbidden fruit, but the forgiveness is not forgiveness like you did anything wrong, no. What you did is you made a mistake. You took something for something other than it actually is. It's a mistake, right? So to forgive means give yourself back the natural state. Let yourself begin to experience that what's looking through your eyes is not a personality. Let yourself experience that that which is aware, that which knows is not a personality. And if you allow yourself to consider that possibility and let go of the thought process that keeps generating the illusion, let go of the process that keeps generating the personality. That's why in meditation we're moving our attention away from that thought process, because that's where the personality is being generated all the time. And without that, there's no evidence for any personality. Without the thinking activity, there is no evidence for any personality. So if you start to relate to the thinking activity differently, and like that's not me thinking, that voice in my head is not me, no. That's the thought process playing, and that thought process is the source of my self-concept. That thought process is the source of my personality, my self-image, my self-concept. It keeps getting generated there, doesn't it? Yeah, when you're in the default state, what's going on? You're thinking about who? Yeah, you. And when you think about you, guess what? You may not notice it, but when you think about you, you're literally creating an illusion. When you think about you, the idea that you're creating about you, that you're thinking about, is being generated by that thought. It doesn't exist anywhere else. This is what self-inquiry is all about, for you to start to notice that this mechanism, this thought process, right, is the process that's generating the self-image that's necessary for you to live in the world, but not really you. That's the difference.
It doesn't exist, it's just a thought.
Well, yeah, but you see, you have to be careful when you see, because when you say it doesn't exist, the personality starts to react to that. Like, wait a minute. No, it exists. There's no problem with it exists. Just like that artificial intelligence program that's popular right now. Does anybody hear about that? Yeah. You can ask this thing questions, and it gives better answers than I could give. Right? So it's not that it does. It's not that it doesn't exist, but its existence has a certain form called like thinking, right? Its existence has a certain form called thinking. Its existence has a certain form like a program playing, like an activity. The personality is an activity, right? But it's not what you are. So when you forgive yourself, when you give yourself back your natural state, right? There's still a personality, right? But now you know that the personality is not actual, it's not awake. You're awake. The truth is you're the awakeness. You're the awakened one. You're the Buddha, right? You're the awakened one. That's what the word Buddha means, the awakened one, right? So what did the Buddha say, when he woke up? He said, I'm aware of the in-breath when I breathe in. I am aware of the out-breath when I breathe out. So what the Buddha's saying is now, I am the awareness of what's happening. I am not a personality. I am the awareness of a personality, but I am not a personality. I am the awareness of time, but I don't live in time. I am the awareness of the world, but I am not the world, right? So this is the waking up experience, and it brings with it the possibility of fulfilling what you want. Right? You said what you want is peace, happiness, freedom, right? It's available at all times. It's available at all times because it's the truth. It's the reality of what you are. And if you want to have that experience, you have to come out of continuing to identify with your thought process. You have to come out of continuing to identify with this idea you have about who you are and start to discover that you can still know about that, you can still use that to be in the world, you can still use that as to be the piece on the board in the game, right? But now you're free to enjoy life, right? Because you're not afraid that something's going to kill you all day long. Because you're free from that, you're free from form, because the reality of what you are is formless, timeless. So really what it boils down to is if you mean what you say, when you say what you want, right? Then why wouldn't you take the opportunity to discover it if it's available at all times? Not only why wouldn't you take the opportunity to discover it if it's available at all times, but why wouldn't you consider the possibility that not only it is available at all times, but it's you. It's you. What you want is you. That's what you're saying. Yeah. What I want is me. What I want is what I really am. And the fact that you want it is evidence for its existence. Check it out. How could you say you want peace, freedom, happiness, satisfaction, and fulfillment if there wasn't some intuitive sense that it's possible? How could you say it? Why would you ask for it if there was no intuitive sense that it's possible? And the reason that there's an intuitive sense that it's possible is that you're being it while you think you're not it, and then asking for what it is. Check it out. You're being it, thinking that you're not it, asking to experience what it is. Aren't you? Yeah. So if you want to experience happiness, let go of your ideas about who you are, and you may discover that you're happy. If you succeed in practicing meditation over time, the day will come as you sit there. The day will come as you sit there that you've relaxed the body sufficiently and the mind's calmed down enough, right? That contact is made with the reality of what you are. And you're sitting there, all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're experiencing yourself as space, as empty space. You're experiencing yourself as happy, fulfilled, peaceful, tranquil, alive, aware, awake. And when you're experiencing that, even if it's for a brief moment, now you know where your home is. Now you have discovered the truth. And although that truth is not going to continue to be the experience you're having because you've been hypnotized, and as soon as something stimulates your brain and your mind, right, the gnosis will come back. And then you're back in the personality, right? And it's like, oh, I want that back. I had it. I lost it. I want that back, right? So you got to go through this process. But the reality of it is you never lost it. You never lost it. You never had it. It was always there. Where your attention went was from the experience of your true nature, the natural state, back to the illusion, back to the self-concept. And then you started thinking as that, and when you started thinking as that, you said, oh, I lost it. But you see, if you stay in the practices and if you keep deepening your understanding, the day will come where you will know, even when you're 100% in the personality, that you know you're not that. So I can enjoy all the fruits of life. I can enjoy being in the world, right? But I am not afraid of anything because I am not of the world. And the personality fears its death, doesn't it? Yeah, personality fears its death. It fears it so much that it avoids thinking about it, right? It denies it. It avoids thinking about it and denies it and acts like it's going to live forever. Isn't it true? People act like they're going to live forever. They don't act like they don't have time. They act like they've got time. It's like my sister said when she was dying. She died from brain cancer, right? She's lying there dying, and she said, she was in an altered state at that point, because of the cancer. And she said, oh, I have my whole life in front of me. She's lying in the bed dying. She said, I have my whole life in front of me. But that was true. It was 2 weeks. That's the life she had in front of her, 2 weeks. But most of us go through life with, when we say I have my whole life in front of me, what do you mean by that? You mean you're assuming that you're good to go, not only for 70 years now people are shooting for 100, right? People are actually talking like, oh, when I'm 90, oh, really? See, the only way out of this is to understand that who you are has no age. The only way out of this is understanding who you are is not physical. And that's the truth. And if you experience that, it doesn't matter anymore when the body dies. You don't have to play games. You don't have to play mind games about mortality. You can let that whole thing go. It doesn't matter when the body dies, right? Because now you're here to enjoy life, and the only life that you know exists is the one that's happening in this very moment. So you have your whole life in front of you. Now, when you're awake, your whole life in front of you is the moment in front of you. That's your whole life in front of you. Yeah. So this is good news because it means you could be 75 years old and wake up, right? And have your whole life ahead of you. You could be 90 and wake up and have your whole life ahead of you. Why? Because your whole life is the single moment. That's your whole life. Can you see that's transformative? That's transformative. If you wake up and you realize that your whole life is happening only in the moment that exists right now, that transforms the whole thing. Your life looks different now. You're not trying to get anywhere in the future. You're not trying to go back into the past. You're just being with the only reality that exists, which is you. which is the moment, the eternal moment. You're enjoying it all because you're not in the program anymore that says to avoid this and seek that. You're not in that program anymore. Now you know that all of life works just the way it is. There needs to be things that are experienced a certain way in order for the manifested world to exist. There has to be up and down. There has to be happiness and sad. You know, all of it is totally workable, and you can be available to that and enjoy the whole thing and be happy because you're not trying to control it anymore. You're not trying to get anywhere. You're no longer trying to get anywhere. You're just enjoying being where you are. You're content and happy all the time, but the contentment that I refer to and the happiness that I refer to, right, is the kind of contentment and happiness that even if you're unhappy and even if you're suffering physical pain, you're still content and happy because you've resolved your relationship to life. You're not trying to make life be different. You're accepting life the way it is. So you're happy to be here. Your happiness is not depending on what's happening here. You're just happy to be here. And you've accepted the whole thing. Because what happens when you wake up, what turns, right? Instead of being a human being, where human is first, right? Which means separate self, personality, human being, right? Instead of being a human being, it flips. You're being human. But being is first. The true reality of what you are is first, and then you're being human.